Yeah, is that what you want to talk about? The
Oh yeah, man.
Saturn Moon Matrix is crazy stuff, man. It's really,
Oh,
really crazy stuff. It can make people go crazy thinking about it.
hey, we're about to ruffle some feathers out there. Oh yes, I am live on Facebook. Hey everybody. Hey everybody. I am excited for this one. Um, yes. Well, look. Why don't I'll hit record. Let's blow some minds. Let's make this happen. And then, actually, let me just make sure I can see if anybody is out there tonight.
Are you
Um,
on YouTube as well?
I
Or
am, I am, my man. Open Loops Pod. Actually, I think it's at Open Loops right now. I think we got it. I think we got it. Yes.
cool, I shared it on Facebook and I'll go over here to YouTube.
Awesome. Hey, everybody. This is a surprise announcement, a surprise broadcast right now going on. I could have built this up more, but I thought it would be more fun to do it this way, right? Um, yeah, let me see. We can get. Why don't I just get going? Let's kick into this. I'll give you the proper intro here. Actually, is there anything before we? This is behind the scenes stuff going on here, folks. But I imagine watchers talk. Same stuff. Do you have any big events coming up, Omar?
No, man, I just wing it as it comes along because nowadays people have become so fake that it's difficult to gauge on who do I want to interact with, and that's one of the
Yes.
reasons why I've kept quiet on not as many streams, right? Because it's just people are untrustworthy nowadays, and I've discovered that they're in it for the clicks. Right. So the only thing I got coming on is I got a panel coming up on Sunday, right?
Yeah.
November 26th at 7 o'clock with Phil Gruber, the lovely Kiera Windrider, and Stephen and Evan Strong.
Oh yeah. Those are people you can trust. Those are good-hearted
Oh,
people.
absolutely. So doing a panel with them Sunday evening, 7 p.m. It's a late show because it's going to be the time difference, right? They're all in
Is
Asia.
that 7 p.m. Pacific?
Yeah, yeah, 7 p.m. Pacific, and we'll probably go for about 3, 4 hours.
Oh,
Right, so
nice.
it's gonna be a long one. Here, I'll send you the poster.
Sounds good. We will definitely plug that. Hey, everybody out there, we're backstage right now. We're about to learn about the Saturn Moon Matrix with Omar. We're getting configured here. I think we're
Uh,
almost good to go. Uh, yeah, why not? I'm sure people will join in later as well. Um,
there you go. Here's the image.
No, oh man, that's beautiful. Whoa. That is beautiful. The Marys of the Bible? Oh my gosh, this
Yeah,
is interesting. Dude, this is my stuff right here.
it's gonna
Uh,
be really cool. It's really Gnostic in nature, and it's gonna be great. I'm looking forward to it.
awesome. Awesome. Well, let me roll into this. It's beautiful. Beautiful facial hair. Yes. Today on Open Loops, he goes by a different name now. Om R Paw. Yes, he is he is the man that he leads Watchers Talk, which I've had the pleasure of being on, the pleasure of participating in several conferences with, and being an MC and teaching classes on hypnosis as part of your events. I mean, it's been awesome. But Omar is he's he's one of the top-notch researchers in this esoteric and spiritual realm. He is a voice of expanding consciousness, really one of the first people that started using the phrase consciousness, and I was like, oh, that's kind of what we're doing here. Awesome. He is a mind bender. Very early on, he came on to teach me about the secret history of the Illuminati. But tonight, we're going to talk about something that I've always been curious about because I've heard him reference, they talk about the simulation and the matrix and the stuff, and it turns out he puts it all together with the Saturn Moon Matrix, which we're going to get into. Apparently, it's going to ruffle some feathers, so get ready, folks. Omar, thanks so much for coming again on the show.
Thanks, my brother. Thanks for having me, and I really appreciate it and look forward to our conversation here this evening, and hopefully open some minds and change some perspectives, and maybe crystallize some perspectives as well, and maybe agree to disagree on some parts, and agree and disagree. You know how it goes, and that's just the best way to have a conversation, because it makes it enlightening and challenging
Yes.
for the mind and the spirit.
I was gonna say, you said crystallize. I was thinking about the last time you were on the show. We were talking about, what was it, Trinity consciousness? Is that what you were?
Yeah, and still am, and we still are, because you mentioned the matrix, and the way to approach the matrix and to look at the matrix is by understanding the fact that you are a consciousness that is observing the spirit and the essence of this physicality. So one way you can do that is when you close your mind and you say hello quietly in your mind. You hear that.
Hmm.
You hear that. And then when you speak it out loud, you say hello, you hear that as well. You hear both of those because you're in a trinity and you're observing down here this physicality. So you're actually in a plane of a matrix with which you're interacting with, and you're being observed.
Whoa. Oh my
You know what I
gosh.
mean?
Already, you're shifting paradigm for me here. This is awesome. I definitely think you yourself have codified that and put that together in a much more tangible way even than last time. Just right there, which implies to me deeper understanding. And also last time we talked, you were like, Greg, I'm sweating rainbows. Is that still a thing?
Yeah, I discovered something about rainbows, Greg, and this is going to blow your mind as well. Because you see, up until recently, there were no rainbows. As recently as just a few thousand years ago, there were actually no rainbows, and there were no clouds, and there was no rain either, and there was no oceans either. There were just a few seas, and the water oozed from the ground. And at some given point, the mantle collapsed, and the little water that did come out created the oceans. And when those oceans were created, it created the weather system, the clouds, and the rains, and the rainbows. Now, if we look beneath the mantle, there's more water beneath the mantle of the earth than there is on the surface of the earth by 1,000-fold. So at some given time, the mantle was kind of just like resting there. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? It was kind of just like resting there, and something happened for that mantle to collapse in on itself. And when it collapsed in, some water escaped, and a lot of it stayed beneath the earth. And I just don't willy-nilly say that, Greg. And that is actually written in the scripture. It's written in the Bible, and numerous other sources have said the same thing. And that the weather system that we have today is relatively new, by 6, 7, 8, 10,000 years. That's it, nothing more.
That's interesting. So wait a minute. What are the implications of that then? I mean, why should we? Is there something that we should return to here? Is there something unnatural about the weather now? I mean, what do you what importance do you place on that?
Well, we can't go back into what it was,
Yeah.
naturally, because you can't trap the water unless you build, another landmass on top of the water to trap that water, or somehow suck it back underneath the mantle. It's not even possible. So that really,
Yeah, that's out
points
of the
fingers.
question.
Yeah, and that points fingers into the fact that this world is terraformed, and possibly a projection, an illusion with which we're interacting with. Because when we look at it in the Bible clearly is talking about and geoengineering and is talking about terraforming and creating light and vegetation and animals and kind of what have you. So it's clearly telling you that there's something is being built here, something is being created. So if you're an outside source, non-local consciousness that's looking in, you can go in and experience that particular, in this case, Earth, right? So the Earth in itself is terraformable, and it has been because it's really is digital. Once you get past the physical aspect of reality, because physical is just what made of atoms, and atoms. There's so much space between the atoms. It just we're not real. That's kind of what I'm trying to tell you is that we're a simulation. Right? Because we are a simulation, we can terraform this Earth into anything that we want. And in this timeline and in this cycle, at some given particular time in antiquity, there were no oceans, and we can't go back to that now because of laws of nature, man. Right? Unless there's something cataclysmic that happens and it covers up the oceans, but otherwise, it's here to stay. Right? The wobble is here to stay, and maybe in a very, very, very future, the Earth may come back to its original wobble, and uh, and 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 maybe something different will happen.
Yeah.
Who knows? But it's like kind of like spinning a top, Greg. When you spin a top, right? What does the top do? Its natural need to is to spin upright, right? It just wants to spin upright, and that's what it wants to do. So when you tap it, it wobbles, right? And the Earth is the same thing. If it's spinning, then it'll be spinning on a natural axis of maybe 1 degrees, 2 degrees. But something happened to the Earth for it to cause it to go into a wobble that is in today. And at some particular time, as you know, our friend John Shaughnessy, he's discussed that Göbekli Tepe is a calendar which tells us when the Earth was in the axis in which the Uranus planet is in right now. It was like literally like on its side,
Hmm.
and that's really cool too, and interesting information there. So that really points to the fact as well that the Earth is in a wild wobble. And this is the position that we just happen to be currently, the 23.5 degree. It's not like it's something that's static now. It's not, right? Because it's going to change. It's going to go because it has been going like this. And why has it been going like that is a question that needs to be asked and answered as well.
Well, that's where I'm trying to get an understanding here of, and maybe you can break this down, but it seems to me that there are fixed laws of physics, and then on the other side of it, there's the crowd that goes, "Yeah, but nothing's fixed. We're in a simulation. You can do whatever you want. You can bend the laws." I'm going, okay, so then what is it, and who decides the laws? Do you think?
Well, I don't know who decides the laws, but I can tell you one thing, and that you know this plane is for physical, right? It's for you to understand what it's like to be physical, but you're not physical, right? You're not physical, you're energy, right? So there's no laws of physics that apply to energy, right? Energy can't be created, it can't be destroyed, it can only be manipulated and changed and kind of what have you, right? So whatever that's happening in this particular matrix is based on that particular set of laws, right? In order for this matrix to work. Like your car, for instance, it wouldn't work without a starter, would it? Right? Or it wouldn't, do its job if you didn't have a radiator, right? Or if you didn't have a transmission. So, if you look at it as mechanical, then the laws of physics kind of make sense in order for you to have this physical experience because you can't have it coming apart, right? You need a, working piece of machinery. And is it a machinery, right? We don't know, right? Is this whole universe a matrix? Right? And within the matrix, there's other matrices to a sense where, say, you want to experience what it's like being a human. So you come to Earth at some particular timeline, or you can choose to be a Martian, and then there's a Martian a matrix that you can interact with, or there's a Palladian or an Osiris, and so on and so on. So the question really becomes, is that is an individual planet a matrix, or is the entire solar system a matrix? And
Oh
then
no.
outside of the matrix, then you have multi-matrices, and then all those multi-matrices, and same thing to where you can, connect with them and experience those as well. Just imagine Neo's cord in the back of your head. Do you experience this universe, or do you experience another, or blah, 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 right? And what aspect of it, kind of like Total Recall, right? Having that real experience that your mind thinks is real, but beyond it, outside of this physicality, your energy and your spirit and your essence, and that has no boundaries. It can't be controlled, right? Because it's divine, right? It's like kind of telling God that he can only go 60 kilometers an hour, right? God can go as fast as he wants, and because there's no laws that apply to it, right? And then we're the same thing, right? So once we get out of this barrier in our mind that says, oh, we're trapped within this, particular illusion, which you are, but when you navigate this matrix, you have the ability to write the story as you go along. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? You have that ability within you. But it's this Illuminati force that you were talking about earlier, is the one that's responsible for us not being able to do that. And that's kind of what my goal is to unravel all of that and expose the Illuminati and expose the, like organizations like Bilderberg Group and World Economic Forums, because they're all satanic, right? Every single one of them. And they are, contributors towards holding humanity back. And people like them have been, and that's why we're in the position that we are today. Just imagine if you can just, if you had the understanding that you can create your own reality within this matrix and have everything that you want and not hurt no one and not sell your soul, you would have a beautiful experience. And you have that ability to do that, right? It's just that you haven't been taught. Your ancestors weren't taught. They know how to do it. That's why they're wealthy, right? They know how to do it, but they want to keep that from us, because if we were playing at the same level as them wealth-wise, then we would look at them as equals, right? But they don't look at us equals. They look at us as subjects and slaves and useless eaters and such. And that's why we have documents like the human rights and the covenants on economic and political rights, where it states that there are a number of fractions at play with an individual. So they look at you as a company, as a business, right? So, they look at you as a subject. They say, oh, you took an oath. You're a citizen. You took an oath. So
Yeah.
because you took an oath, now you're under servitude, right? Because you took an oath, now you invite punishment, because you said, I will do this and I will do this and I will do that. And if I break any of those rules, then I invite punishment onto myself, and you can give me that punishment of whatever that it is. Sovereign being doesn't say that. A sovereign being doesn't go into contracts, doesn't agree to things, right? So when you become a citizen, you're essentially becoming under the servitude of someone. And the human rights clearly states that no one shall be held under servitude. But yet we have people running around saying that they're proud citizens. So what are they saying? They're proud slaves? Right. And that's why governments look at them and say, oh, look, they're useless eater. Let's feed them bugs because, they're citizens. So it's a perception that we need to change, not only within ourselves, but around ourselves as well.
Yeah. This is a very oh yeah, this is a rocky topic. I mean, I'm just trying to imagine you know, it makes a lot of sense that even as we enter this holiday season, I'm noticing the patterns within myself that have been programmed to go, oh, look at all these deals. Look at it's Black Friday coming up. I'm going to buy things, I'm going to buy things. And then it's like that empty feeling after. And to me, that craving, that constant consumerist craving that want you to experience, I mean, there's no spiritual payoff to that. There's none of it. But on the other hand, I'm going, okay, so how do I say, Greg, it's time for me to leave my human meat skin and also not, end my life all of a sudden, because I understand the cult perspective too, right? All these guys are like, oh, let's just kill ourselves and then we'll be spirit and then we'll be floating along, all this stuff. I mean, what is the healthy balance? How do you actually ascend without just, do you know how to ascend practically for the people, Omar?
Greg, ascension is a matrix word. Ascension is a program word. Ascension is a con word. And the only
Okay.
ascension one can have is the ascension within themselves of awareness and understanding of who and what they are. That is ascension. As we were talking about, the laws of physics, the laws of physics states that you're born as such and you will die as such, and there's nothing in between. Maybe there's a rare person in between that can turn their body into light, turn into a rainbow, and fly away like a dove. Maybe there's somebody, one out of a billion, perhaps, maybe one out of 10, very, very rare. But the only ascension, see, the word ascension got hijacked by the New Age community. And they've just taken something old and repackaged it as something new and offered it to the TikTok generation, and they're essentially just running with it, and they don't understand really what the word ascension means. Ascension is to ascend within. There's no outside ascending. There is no going into 5D and 6D. There is none of that. If you want to go into 5D, you're going to have to play out your time here on this planet, die, and then reincarnate and come back as a 5D individual. If you want to go as a 6D, you can go as a 6D too. But when you're here in the 3D, 4D, 5D reality that we're in, that is where you're at. And we need to come to terms with that, because this is part of the parasitical thinking of the left, to where they've made us, they've deluded us with this idea that we can ascend into different dimensions while we are here. It's not possible. The only dimensional ascension that's happening is within yourself. The dimensions of knowledge and awareness is changing within the person. Otherwise, it's a parasitical thought.
Do you think that there still is this? I mean, I keep hearing about the timeline shift, the split, people breaking. One half is going to go here, one half is going to do. You buy any of that, or is that also BS?
Well, it's already happening, Greg. When you look at it, look at the mass murder that just happened across the world. Millions of people are dying. And like I said, you have to die to ascend. And once you die, then you vibrate into a different reality. So those people that are dying by the millions are actually reincarnating into a different dimension. And that's the dimension that they are engaging with. That's the one that they're interacting with, because that's the choice that they made. Right? When you made the choice, that's the choice you made, that you want to interact with this particular timeline. So you have to terminate this one and then come back to that other one. We've chosen not to do so. So we're still here, but millions and millions are leaving, and really they're leaving by the droves. If you do your research and you look around and listen to alternative news, because that's where really the real shit is coming from. And the numbers that they're reporting are astronomical. Just astronomical amounts of people are living. So yeah, timelines, they are changing, right? But like I said, you have to terminate one in order to start another.
Oh boy, interesting,
Because when you
interesting.
when you look at, Greg, when you look at this dimension, right, and this is a 3D dimensional world, right? There's 3D things here. Now, when you take time and you add time into this 3D, then this 3D becomes a fourth dimension. And then when you add spirit and essence into it, that's being observed by consciousness, then it becomes the fifth dimension. So you're already vibrating in the fifth dimension. So there's no need for people to think that they're in 3D. And if they're in 3D, then they don't understand the time dimension. They don't understand the conscious dimension of any of that, because consciousness in itself is a dimension, right? Is a dimension that experiences. Maybe other dimensions experience too, but consciousness in itself is an expression.
Yeah, this is what I love about you, Omar. You kind of speak like a hippie, but you're not annoying about it. Um, You know what I mean? I mean, some of these people are just so much, and it's so ego driven. I don't even. I feel like a couple years ago there was all these manifestation coaches, and I don't even. I mean, I'm sure manifestation is still popular, but is it a little, it doesn't really feel ground, something about it has always felt vibrationally off to me. And yet you were talking about, what is the difference? What's the difference between sitting around and being like, I'm going to manifest my dream life, and actually having some kind of meaningful experience?
It takes a number of things, Greg. One is that you have to get rid of that coach, right? Because that coach is poisonous, and you have to get rid of it because that coach is interjecting its thoughts into your mind for you to agree to what he's saying in order for you to create your reality. So fundamentally, at the root, you're not really experiencing your own thoughts. You're experiencing someone
Yes.
else's thoughts, and then thus your dreams don't become true because they're not coming from your heart, they're not coming from your spirit, and they're not coming from your essence. They're coming from someone else to which you're agreeing with. And why you're agreeing with it is because you're egotistical. Your ego is saying, yes, 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 I want that. You're salivating at the idea that you want that. But then you're lying to yourself and you're tricking yourself into making yourself believe that it's spiritual. So when you live that type of false type of life, then of course your manifestations aren't going to come true. But manifestation is very, very real. You have to sit around and make manifestations, but you just can't just sit there and blow it out your ass and say, "Oh, I manifest a Ferrari," and just sit on your ass eating chips and playing, a PlayStation and making TikTok videos. You actually have to go out and you have to do something in order for that to come true, because the universe will give you what you want because you're essentially asking yourself to give yourself that. So just sitting at home, those opportunities are not going to come your way. So you have to leave your home. You have to go out and work. You have to try to attain it for yourself. And as you're doing it, opportunities will present themselves for you to have that Ferrari or to have that house or blah, 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 because that opportunity will be presented to you. Somebody's not going to come to your door and knock on it and say, "Hey, Greg, here's a trip to Mexico for a year, all paid for, and good luck. See you in a year. Make us a documentary." It's not going to happen. If you want that, you have to go out there, and somewhere on your path, you'll come across someone who will offer you that. And you'll be like, "Holy shit, I thought about that. I asked for that a month ago, 6 months ago, last year, 5 years ago, and wow, it's happening." That's how manifestations work. The way the New Age manifestation works is a setup for failure. And not only that, but it creates bad karma for yourself because you're lying to yourself. The more you lie to yourself, the deeper in the hole you fall.
Hmm. Yeah, that is fascinating. And what's fascinating is in the same way that the ego can play tricks on you. When you have, say, like, if you have anxiety, you can go learn some mindfulness technique about identifying if you're anxious about something or not, and then you can start looping in your head. I know I do this about, you start thinking about the technique, and then you start, like, the ego is a very tricky thing. It is. I get why people compare it to Lilith. Some people say it is Satan. I mean, people have gone that far, but I can kind of see how this happens in the new age and in the spiritual field. It's like it's just a little left of what might be the truth, or at least it looks like it. It can look like it, but it isn't actually the thing. It's I don't know. I mean, I see why people. I mean, Omar, I don't know if you have any guidance except, like, yo, watch out because you could instantly be pulled into some false paradigm. But it seems a little hard when it's just not clear what is pure and what has been tainted by an agenda. They look very, it can be very elusive. Do you have any wisdom about how to sort through what might be satanic versus what's not?
Yeah, absolutely. Just every time these guys tell you something, just think the opposite. Whatever they tell you, just think the opposite. If they tell you they're doing good, they're doing bad. If they're doing bad, then obviously they're doing good. And, it's just the opposite. And another thing, I have to say, maybe I don't want to offend anybody out there, but the truth is the truth. You mentioned the word anxiety, and anxiety is just something that's relatively new. And and if you suffer from anxiety, then in my mind, you're a pussy because you can't deal with reality. You can't deal with the fundamentals of what the world is throwing at you. You look back at Generation X, like my generation, for instance, or my parents' generation, or even people that are born like in the 90s, right? Even when you look at them, they don't have that anxiety. They never freaked out. They just took life as it gave them and they ran with it. And back in those days, people didn't wear glasses. I mean, like mind glasses to wear, whatever that was being fed to them, they just took it as it was. It used to be as that way, but as really it broke open for everyone with Generation X, with my generation, because we began questioning, and our parents kind of like really seeded that idea and that thought in our head after like the Vietnam Wars and all the protests. And at that time, the illusion, people were buying the illusion that was being sold to us. And since that time up until now, we're just been questioning, questioning, questioning. So for us, when we look around, we understand in our mind, but again, it comes back to the programming that you mentioned earlier, the Christmas programming, it all comes down to that, Greg. It all comes down to that. It's all in the programming. They got like trigger words out there, when they make that trigger word, all of a sudden everybody freaks out, and everyone's in a hysteria, and that's what they go with, and that is the illusion, right? And that really is the illusion. So people know that the media lies, but yet their programming, believes everything that they tell them. And people know that the government is bad for them. They know that the government is very, very bad for you, but yet they cold-heartedly follow the government, no matter what. We can use an example. For instance, let's use March 19th. 2020 as an example, right down to a date. March 19th, 2020, everything was normal. Everyone was hating on the government. When you ask somebody about a politician, they'd say, I hate that motherfucker. Don't trust them as far as I can throw. I hate the government. They have too much control, blah, 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 blah. That's what you would have heard on the street. Then came March the 20th. That's when the Scamdemic was called. And then on that day, when the government's called for people to be locked down, guess what people did? They didn't need to acquiesce. Acquiesce means unwillingly locking down. People just willingly ran off into their little caves and just hid in there. And that's what I mean by programming. The day before, they were saying they don't trust the government, but today, the government's telling them to do something, and they're running off doing it without any question. And look at the consequences that came from that, right? So the illusion, that is the illusion, is the programming that's within us. And we have to understand when that trigger is happening within the self, and when that trigger is happening societally as well, and just raise the alarm bells and try to reach as many people as you can. But of course, the masses aren't going to come.
Yeah.
Right? Very few people are going to listen. That's because they've chosen their timeline. That's it really comes down to that. Like when you think of the Mayan timeline, and the little glyph that they left, on one side is all destruction, the other side has plants growing, and it's all happy, happy. And they've chosen their destructive path because they've chosen to take the pathogen, and they've made that spiritual choice that, hey, I trust these people, I'm going to take it. So I'm part of their army now. And that's kind of, how it is. Greg, is you can't beat around the bush anymore. We just have to call it out for
You heard her, folks. I have anxiety, so Trump is gonna grab me by the. No, look,
I'm not saying that you're a pussy, Greg. I'm saying that
No, I know what you mean.
There are people out there who have anxiety to the point where it's uncontrollable. They see stairs and they freak out. They see an elevator, they freak out. They'll see a spider, they'll freak right out. And
of course.
They need a brown paper bag, and they're just freaking right out. Every once in a while, when it happens to you, when you become overwhelmed, that's just natural, right? But when it's like LGBTQ style, right, is what I call it. Then no, man, it's not. It's fake. Right, it's fake, it's manufactured as well, because if you're spiritually strong within the self, and if you're strong within the self in your mind, then there's nothing, absolutely nothing that can overtake you, because your confidence just simply will not allow it. That's not ego, that's confidence. There's difference between the two. Ego is good to a degree, right? It might protect you, it might save you, but that's it. And, it's still parasitical, but it's the confidence within the self that's the ultimate energy that one wants to be vibrating on here in this realm anyways, because without confidence you have nothing.
Yeah. Well, everybody in the chat right now is writing Greg equals and then a pussy cat emoji. Okay, look.
Oh,
No, no, that's not. No, they're not. They're not. They're not. Okay, so look. No, Omar, look.
I don't
I
want to
this.
offend nobody. I'm just calling it out for, as how I see
No,
it in my
I'm
mind.
with you in the weakening of the spirit. The weakening fear is such a weak force, and we're so
But
again
it works so
programmed,
well.
indoctrinated.
But it
It's
works so well though, Greg. Right? That's the thing.
yeah,
You know why?
yeah.
You know why it
Why?
works so well? It all comes down to the Saturn Moon Matrix, my friend. It all
Yes, I
comes
was going to
down
bring it
to that.
back. Okay, so I think we've gone to like the consequences of where the world is and what's going on. But why is it Saturn? Why is it connected? Why is because to me I'm thinking, I mean, are we talking literally about that planet with the rings around it? Like you mean that literal? If it
Yes,
is a
yes,
planet.
yes.
Okay.
That literal is the planet with rings on it. I've seen it myself with my own eyes. But when, as I mentioned from the get-go of this show, that we need to create a playing field in order for us to understand what the Saturn Moon Matrix is. Right? We need to create an environment for our mind to understand what we are, right? And what we're actually interacting with and what it actually is. Now, as I mentioned, we did the experiment with a hello. You quietly say hello in your mind, you hear that. Who's hearing that? When you say hello out loud, you're hearing that. Who is hearing that? That's the consciousness that's hearing it because it is the observer. It's observing both the mind and the body. So now that mind and the body is interacting with an energy. So now we've created a matrix, right? Now, as we were saying, is this universe the matrix, or is this the Earth the matrix, or is this solar system the matrix, or is it that every star is a matrix because of the energy output that it has? Now, Saturn may appear to be a planet in this holographic universe, but we are interacting with an information field because that is what a matrix is. A matrix is an information field. So when we look at Saturn on the information field, it is a field of information. It is a matrix, which is projecting a particular reality, right? So that's where it comes down to is the sun a matrix? Is the solar system the matrix? Is the earth the matrix? What is the matrix? I would suggest and hypothesize that Saturn is the matrix, and Saturn is projecting this reality of this Earth, this physical Earth, upon us for us to experience and interact with. But unfortunately, it's a trap, right? It's a trap because it's there to it's there to steal your energy. It's there to steal your loosh. The entities that come through it are the ones that are engaging in this environment that we're dealing with right now, with the satanic environment, because Saturn is the planet of death. Saturn is the planet number 8, right? Number 8, when you turn it sideways, what do you get? You get the infinity sign. Now, to go even a little bit further, it mentions, Jesus mentioned this himself, that Earth is Satan's planet, that he is the god of this planet. Now, Jesus said that Satan is the god of this planet. Now, Satan, Jesus, worships another god, right? So now, how can there be two gods?
Yeah, that's a great question.
How can there be two gods? Because Jesus says that Satan is the god of this world. So, did this matrix reality begin at around that time of maybe say Roman Empire, like around that time when this type of activity, Babylonian time, when this cabal activity that we're seeing around the world today kind of originates from, right? So the Matrix, when you engage with it, right, in Satan's world, when you engage with it, you're losing your energy, you're losing your loosh. That's why it's a challenge to the self when you migrate into this reality, into Satan's planet, right? You challenging yourself that you cannot be overcome, that you're light. Wherever you go, you will illuminate the darkness and you'll be the light in that room. And some people accomplish that and some people don't and end up in a cycle of reincarnation and just continue to come back over and over again. Why is our lifespan 80 years? How did it go from 80 to 80 years, from 1,000 years in just a matter of a couple of hundred years? How did that happen? Right? Was there a previous matrix that was here, like the Tartarian matrix, for instance? Or the Atlantean matrix, and so on and so on. And I would suggest is that Saturn is the one that is projecting that field. You know what I'm saying? And we're interacting with it because Saturn puts out more energy, 2.5 times more energy than it takes in. How?
Oh, interesting.
How is that? Right? Like how is that even possible? That its output is 2.5 times more than what it actually receives from the solar sun. Now the rumor goes, Greg, is that back in the day, not that long ago, that Saturn was the actual star in the sky, and our star may have been there, right? But have been a binary star system, but it's not really mentioned, right? Saturn was the star. That's why it's called the dark star, the dark sun, the black sun, right? The Lord of the Rings is Saturn, right? So back in the days, Saturn was the sun, and it was up close to us too. We could see it. It was so close to us, we could see it. And something happened, right? Something happened in our solar system that rearranged all the planets. How's that even possible? How do you move planets around, Greg? Right?
Right.
Emmanuel Vlasky talks about it. Uranus and Venus switching spots, and how does that happen? How is this pool table going on our planet? So again, that gives us an idea that perhaps we are interacting with something that's artificial and has a reset point to where a particular game is played out and then a new one loads up and then a particular game and a new one and so on and so on. And this time around, Satan owns the planet. And if you got God, the Jesus Trinity, telling you that there are two gods besides himself, like there's him, the God, the Holy Son, the Ghost, and the Spirit kind of deal, right? So he's God. And then you have another one that's Satan, that's God. But we're under the impression that Satan is a fallen angel, right? God's favorite angel. So, it's contradicting itself. So, what is he? Jesus? Is he an archangel or is he a God? But Jesus says he's God, so we have to take his word for it, right? And, so this could be hell, right? You essentially could be in hell because it's Satan's planet. So if it's Satan's planet, that must mean that this is hell, right? It must mean that if Satan
Oh
owns this,
my
if
gosh.
Satan owns this
Wow.
place, then it means that this is hell, and whatever you did in your last life, like you have to pay the sentence here, right? And because life has been deduced down to 80 years, then whatever time that you have to do in hell, right? Consider it like a prison for consciousness, right? Rehabilitation kind of thing, right? So if you're being sentenced to say 50 lifetimes of hell on earth, then you have to come here and reincarnate 50 times and then go through that. And then maybe after the 50th time you get parole and you get released, you learned your lesson and you'll never come back to this matrix ever again. Who knows? But all evidence kind of points to that direction because on this world, when you sell your soul to the devil, right? Like a lot of Hollywood stars and musicians and artists and kind of what have you they've done. They say when you sell your soul to the devil, you get everything you want, right? So there's the God of this world and that is providing for you. right? Giving you what you want, but as long as your allegiance is with him to carry out its dirty work. But now, if you ask your God, right, of this world, right, he doesn't give you anything and he tells you no. You have to have your hardship and suffering. And then after the hardship and suffering, you can have peace. But for the time being, no, I'm not helping you. You're there, you're a bad boy, and that's the guy that's in charge. And that's it, right? Tough love kind of thing. So that's kind of how I'm interpreting this whole Saturn Moon Matrix. But hell doesn't have to be bad, Greg. It is bad. Take a look around. 7,000 children killed in Palestine just recently, and there's wars going on all around the planet. There's hunger, there's drug addiction and disease. People are dropping dead from this bioweapon. Just all kinds of shit is going on, right? So if we trap ourselves into that type of mentality, then we're entrapping ourselves into the energy of the world, right? Into the energy of this planet of low energy, low vibratory, to where you start becoming depressed, right? Depression is not real. Depression is self-caused, and depression is a state of mind. But if you're, outside of that cube and you're thinking that, hey, I don't want to be a part of that. I'm just going to observe that and really not, give it any energy or any feeling, then you'll be okay. And you'll have a decent experience, and off you go, and maybe you'll come back again, maybe you won't. It really, it's about that. It's just about being nice.
Now, wow, wow, this is so much to take in here. It makes me wonder about, I mean, a lot of questions off the bat. Are other people, are you the first person to have stumbled on this, Omar? Are there other traditions in the world that point to this Saturn theory?
They all do, Greg. They all do. Look at the Abrahamic religions, for instance. Now, we didn't. Okay, I'll give you a little backstep to this. When we look at the northern hemisphere of Saturn, we see a huge storm in which you can fit thousands of Earths. It's huge, and it's in the shape of a hexagon that's orbiting or going counterclockwise against the planet. And then, what is a hexagon, Greg? A hexagon is a flattened out cube. That's what a hexagon is. So now, when we come here to the Earth, we look at the Abrahamic monolithic religions like Muslims, right? Their holy site is Mecca. And what's really important to them at Mecca? The black cube, Kaaba. Now, when you look at the Jews, what are they doing? They're wearing the Teflon, which is again
Yes.
a black cube on their third eye. When you look at Christianity, what are they worshiping? They're worshiping the cross, which is a geometrical cube. So all three religions are in worship to the cube. And that cube is linked to Saturn because they're sun worshiping, because back in those days, that was the sun. And that's whom they're in worship with. Now, interestingly enough, when you look at the south pole of Saturn, there's another massive storm that's happening in which, again, you can fit thousands of Earths. And again, it's going counterclockwise, and it's in the shape of an eye. And that looks like the eye of Providence, the all-seeing eye. Now, we didn't know this about Saturn until like 1977, 1978. So how did all of these people have this information prior to, right? Because we got this information from Cassini flying by. And that's how we got our information about Saturn. And that's when we discovered that there's these huge storms that are geometrical in shape, and that's what's happening. But it turns out that our ancestors already knew this information. How did they know this? Why is it that all three religions are in worship to the cube? So does that mean that they're worshiping Satan? Because Saturn is the planet of death. Saturnism is Satanism.
Oh man, see now this is where I'm with you in a lot of ways, man. I mean, look, as the oft skeptic attitude that I come with sometimes gets challenged. I've been thinking about that cube thing. I mean, the black cube is so specific
And it's
for
all over
all
the
of those
planet.
religions.
That's right. And it's all over the planet as well, the black cubes. They got black cubes everywhere. There's a black cube in Netherlands, in Germany, in Denmark, in Sweden, in New York. Geez, there's one at the Apple
Yeah.
building right around the corner from you. The Astor's Cube, I believe, is called.
Yes, yes,
What
Aster, it's
it's
a right
called?
there.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
would that? It doesn't. It's not just we don't just arbitrarily make these cubes.
And look
It
at the
has to
footprint.
come from something.
Look at the footprint of the World Trade Center. That is a black cube.
Oh man.
Look at the artwork in the subway going underneath. It's all occultic. It's all dedicated to Satan, the whole thing. And even like as I mentioned, the footprint of the towers, the two towers. It's a cube.
So let's see what it is. Let's play Saturn's advocate here for a second on this, and say, okay, well, I'm trying to even think what the excuse would be. Oh well, people just had symbols of things back. Like it doesn't even make sense that the same symbols would show up over and over. I'm not even sure how the skeptics could explain this esoteric symbolism away.
Well, and the symbols, no, they only mean something when there's thought and energy produced into them. And that is the only
Mm,
time a symbol would really mean anything. I had this discussion with my brother just a few days ago, and he said, "Well, what about the guy that's, just has a, cleaning company and he has a swoosh,
right.
for his logo. Does that mean he's satanic?" And I was like, "No. He can have that swoosh because he doesn't understand what that swoosh is. There's no ceremony gone into that swoosh. There's no thought and process gone into that swoosh. There's no energy produced into that swoosh for it to have an imprint to interact with other energy forms out there because it's just there. It's just simply
Yeah.
there. But when you look at the big corporations, right, the big corporations that are controlled by the Illuminati and are controlled by the Masonic Order and things like that, now we have energy going into their symbolism and the logos and such that they produce because they're just not willy-nilly just sitting there, you know, just drawing up things and going, oh well, this can be our logo. No, there's a lot of thought process that's gone into that, and they've hired, like 96-degree masons to come in and draw those types of things out. So there's a lot of energy is what goes into it, and that's what counts is the
Yeah.
energy that's going to interact with you. Like the Nike symbol, for instance, right? We got the Nike symbol that goes like that. Now that Nike symbol is a representation of a crescent, and the crescent is a representation of Saturn because back in the day, like I was mentioning, something had happened, and there was a mass ejection of material that came out of Saturn. And as the Earth was changing from season to season, the reflection of Saturn would change as well. There was a dark hue in front of Saturn, and the side of it would appear as a crescent. So as seasons changed, those crescents would move. Now I hypothesize whatever that came out of the planet helped form part of the rings, and now those rings is what that swoosh is because it's ringing around Saturn, right? That swoosh, it's ringing around Saturn, and it's really an offshoot of again the crescent, which has really evolved into a number of other things like the horned god and the two towers and so on and so on, and the wings, of anything that has a crescent type of form to it. We see it in all the logos of the world. I look at the UN logo. You see those wheat handles that come across like that. You ever
Yeah.
wonder why they look like the devil's horns?
Right.
Right?
Right.
You ever wonder why they look like the devil's horns? They happen to look like devil's horns. So why? What's the significance of that? Because this world is in worship to the devil,
Yeah.
right?
Let me ask you something. Where does the pine cone fit into this?
The pineal gland.
Yeah, who's
Well,
is that the same team as the Saturn people or is that a different team?
they want to suppress the pineal gland because you're easily able to be controlled if it's not working, right? So if it's not working and you're not, aware of your surroundings and you're blind to the fact and are almost like zombie-like the way, society is today, then you're easily controlled. That's why there's such an attack on the pineal gland to classify it. right? Because once it's classified, it's not going to work anymore, and you're going to be into that zombie state type of mind. But good thing that there's herbs and such on this planet that you can consume to declassify all of that and stop drinking water out of plastic bottles. And when you drink it out of your tap, boil it and drink it, kill the fluoride in it and drink it, because the water that you're getting from in the water bottle, do you really think that's good for you? Right? You got a multi-billion-dollar corporation, that's in cahoots with the pharma mafia. Do they really want to quench your thirst, or do they want to make a customer for their buddy over there? Right? So,
Right.
stop consuming. Stop consuming. That's the whole thing. Is just stop consuming. Consume as least as you possibly need to. Right? Just as least as you possibly have to, because their tone will change when our dollars dry up.
Do you see that coming with the rise of all these new AI tools? And I mean, I think
No way.
businesses are using them.
No
They're
way.
using it for profit.
Yeah, I think we're fucked. Really, a really great,
It's hell. It's
yeah,
hell.
to be honest, I think we're screwed. In the next couple of years, probably, every single one of us
Oh
will
man.
have digital ID. Every one of us will be carrying a digital wallet. Every single one of us will be acquiescing to their system, because society in at large doesn't have the balls to stand up. It just doesn't have the spine, to say no, because they just don't have the spine. The people that they elect are cowards and are sellouts, and they make deals with imps, and the people suffer from that, and people will just suffer, and they don't stand up and say, no, I refuse to do that. They just simply run with it, right? Like, for instance, self-checkout, right? Self-checkout, for instance, just
Yeah.
as a very minor example, self-checkout. Oh, it's about convenience. I don't want to deal with people. I just want to just get my things and just go. Okay, well, that self-checkout took someone's job, and you're using it, and you're saying it's okay to have that, and tomorrow it will be your job, and then you'll be that useless eater that cash register person was, now is, right? Because now that person's become a useless eater. It can't do anything. And that's all it knows how to do, is operate the cash register. It doesn't have a job anymore because there's no more cash registers, and there's nowhere they can go and work. So now they have to live off the state. Maybe a few won't. Maybe the rest of them will. Right? Now
Hmm.
tomorrow it's your job, right? Oh, let's go cashless today. Starbucks. Oh, I love Starbucks. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, what if tomorrow is something else? Right? Day after that is something else, and soon that's what it's going to be, and that is what is happening, because people just don't have that. All it takes is to reach in your pocket and pull out a 20 and pay for your coffee in cash. And if they say, oh, sorry, we accept digital only, well, say, oh, well, fuck you. The guy across the street accepts cash. And you go across the street and you get your coffee from that guy instead of pulling out your card and tapping it, right? It's because of our own actions that these things are happening, and we're not standing up for ourselves, our community, for our families. And like I said, we're just simple zombies under this spell, this satanic spell that we're under, and we just continue to acquiesce, right? I was
Where
just
does the
following orders.
moon? Where does the moon fit into this?
Well, great. That's kind of where the whole no water thing, the no oceans and rainbows kind of comes in, right? Because if we look back around 6 or 7 thousand years ago, the Earth didn't have a moon. There was no moon in the sky. There's no stories of the moon. In fact, our ancestors told us that there was no moon. You can look at the Akkadians, the ancestors of the Greeks. They said that there was no moon. You go to the Indians in Colombia, they tell you that there was no moon. You go to the Indians up here in North America, they tell you that there was no moon. The moon just suddenly showed up. The moon just willy-nilly just came out of nowhere, and it just positioned itself to where it is today. And it's just been there ever since. And that's what I hypothesize, that that is part of a much bigger machine, where it's connected to Saturn and its artificial moons, because there's a frequency that's coming off of Saturn. And when you listen to that frequency and match it with the rest of the planets across the solar system, its frequency is very unique. It stands out, and it sounds kind of like a haunted house. You ever go into a haunted house on Halloween They're playing that music. Ooh. Just imagine just
Yeah.
pitching that up a little bit and getting it into a sound wave, and that's kind of the sound that's coming off of Saturn. And there's a number of artificial moons that are around Saturn as well, like like for instance, Mimas or Iapetus or Hyperion or Pan or Atlas. There's a whole host of them. Those are just a few moons off the top of my head, but when you look at the Iapetus moon and the Mimas moon, they are identical. They're twins. They look like the Death Star from Star Wars. And that's very interesting as well. How did George Lucas know about the Death Star before Cassini had the chance to send the information back? Because Star Wars came out 2 years before we went to Saturn, and here he has a mimic, an identical copy of Iapetus and Mimas. Now, Mimas is like 400 miles, and Iapetus is 1,400 miles. But when you look at it, they both look identical, so they're twins. Now, what's the odds of having twins moons in one system? But not only that, but then you look at Pan and Atlas. Both of those are artificial as hell too. Like they totally are. Bulged in the middle like this, and they got a rim around them. And two of them look identical. Kind of reminds me of a sound machine. The ones that Riot controls, acoustic machines that they use to make you puke and shit yourself, kind of deal, right? Kind of
Yes, yes.
reminds me of that. So where does the moon fall in? I think what's happening is that they're picking up the vibration, the frequency that's coming off of the moon, collecting it with these artificial moons, and then transmitting it to our moon. And our moon is hollow. There's something inside that's transmitting this particular frequency, and hence that's why it's tidal locked to us, so that it can always have us in that frequency. And that's what that frequency is causing us to behave in such a manner that we are today. Now, interestingly, there was a experiment done. I saw this video of the scientists, and they had these couple of mice in a maze, and they put some cheese out in this maze, and they let the mice go, and the mice were going around, they were doing their business, and they would find food, they'd eat it, they were happy, and they were content, and they
Yeah.
would get along, and they were friends, and they did what they had to. But then, after a few tries of that, and they began emitting these mice with a particular frequency. They wouldn't say which frequency it was. Good, thank God. But they wouldn't tell you what frequency. But they began emitting these mice with a particular frequency, and these mice lost their minds. And just right out the gate, as they came out, they had no idea where to go get their cheese. They had no idea how the maze worked. They were very confused, running back and forth. Some began climbing over it. They began attacking each other. They began fighting each other, and oddly and interestingly enough, as soon as the second they lifted the frequency off of the mice, they went to being docile and impotent. Go figure. So it was the frequency that caused those mice to become violent and not get along with one another, when before they were getting along with one another. Now, what if the moon is working in the same manner? Now, what if that frequency that's coming off of Saturn is being manipulated somehow and being transmitted to us, and then our moon is picking it up and transmitting that to us because it's in tidal lock. It gets the entire Earth, right? You're constantly under that barrage of that sound vibration, that frequency, and enhance makes us do what we're doing. Because when you look at the stories coming from antiquity, we were peaceful. So that would suggest that the Matrix was a little different, or this was installed in order for us to be in the state that we are in today. Where does the pineal gland stand in there? Right? The pineal gland stands in there is so that you can decode this information, right? So you can decode your reality. You can, decode everything that is happening. So if that's classified, then you're really decoding whatever they want you to decode, and thus we're trapped into this violent, very, very violent planet.
Yeah. I mean, look, when it seems that whenever humans or not humans, whenever there seems to be some kind of controlled operation that involves concentrating an extreme amount of energy in one place, we're taking this energy and we're just putting it here and harvesting it and projecting it, and it seems like there's always something bad attached to that. I don't know when it's a pleasant thing.
Well, we got hijacked and we're food. right? And we're food to these things. They're called the archons, right? They're spoken about in the Old Testament, and in the Quran, they're like the jinn, and these are interdimensional beings, demonic beings, essentially, that vibrate at a distortion that's not where we're not able to decode their presence, right? Because we can only see, what is it, like 0.0000005% of what's actually in front of us. So we're not able to really see and hear everything. So this entity, it vibrates beyond that. It can see us, but we can't see it. So what it does is that it feeds off of your dense energy. It feeds off of your anger. It feeds off of your sadness. And it creates those environments for you to interact with so that you're constantly in that state, perpetual state of fear and loss, because that's the energy that this thing needs in order for it to survive. So you're food for it, right? It's rearing you like we rear chickens. And that's its only goal with you, is to feed off of your energy, off of your loosh. Now, you ever see somebody who's like 30 years old and look like they're 60?
Yeah.
It's because they've lost their loosh. And there's a predator parasite attached to them, and it's sucking the life out of them. It's sucking the loosh right out of their body. And you ever see somebody who's like 70 and they look like they're 40? Right? That person hasn't allowed that to happen to them because they're vibrating at such a love environment, that love distortion, that this parasite is not able to attach itself to you. I would suggest that everyone has this parasite, a few of them attached to them, and you've probably seen them at some particular point or another because they're very dark. Now, if you shut your lights off in your room and just lay there and stare into the darkness, I guarantee you will see a few of these dark things roaming around, and you'll be able to pick them out from the darkness because they are that dark. And you just have to simply just like lay there and just look around your room. And after a few minutes, you'll see them start buzzing around. No
Whoa.
bullshit. No bullshit. They're attached to us. And the only way to detach them is to be in love. Just be in love. Accept everything and be in love. Don't give a shit. Take life as it is. It is what it is. And because, when you formulate yourself in that manner, then what you're doing is you're taking life on one day at a time, like one day at a time. And you may have long-term plans in your mind, but really you're taking it one day at a time. And this parasite can't attach itself to that. It needs something that's deep rooted. It needs to attack your aspirations. It needs to attack your dreams. It needs to destroy that in order for it to have some sustenance. It's a horrible thing. It really is. And you would find that on Satan's planet. Really, you really would. When you think about it, you would have all of these imps and demons and shit that are running around. Maybe we can't see them, but definitely they're there, right? But we can see them. Look at Satan Nayu in Israel, right? Responsible for killing like 8,000 babies so far, right? And look at Biden, good old Brandon, right? Same thing. Trudeau, Castro up here, right? Shiki in
Right.
the UK, these are all demons, all of them. They're all demons, and they're operating on their behalf.
Yeah, man. I mean, that is that is intriguing. Very controversial views here. Oh man,
Greg, they're
what
only controversial to a programmed and uninformed mind, right? That's only
the insults today,
yeah,
sir.
it
Nah,
is
keep going.
only controversial to those people, and it is only controversial to someone who is only willing to listen to only their thoughts, and what they say is the truth
Right.
and the final truth. It's only controversial to those closed-minded people, right? And we can say that they're closed-minded, so they must be anti-Semite. That's what I say. If they're closed-minded, then they're anti-Semite.
Wait a second. Wait a second.
We're gonna roll with that logic because we're in those times, Greg. We are because knowledge is a Semite, is Semite. So if you go against that, then anti-Semitic. We're going to define it that way. And
Wait, I want to figure out something here. This waking up process that you, or not waking up, but this love that you describe, do you think it's necessary that everybody knows about this Saturn Moon Matrix to wake up, or all start loving each other and then it just goes away?
I think we should keep it a secret and thin out the herd.
Oh my gosh. You're married now. I thought you were happier.
I'm just kidding. Of course, everyone should know. Everyone should know. The thin is hurting itself out, and everyone should understand and know, what they're dealing with. But fact of the matter is, Greg, is that a person that's waking up or is in the transition, they're just simply not going to understand the complexity that is behind the Saturn Moon Matrix, right? Because everyone is in the state of mind that I pinch, therefore I am. And, they can't get out of that simple reality because they think that they're real, right? And that's what the problem is. As long as you think that you're real, you're just simply not going to understand the Saturn Moon Matrix. Once you understand and realize that you're a projection that is being projected into this plane in order for you to understand it or to experience it, only then will the Saturn Moon Matrix really make any sense.
That's fascinating. Now, yeah, no, I mean, I know everybody should definitely check out Watchers Talk because you are constantly talking about this, among other things that are important for people to understand. I mean, why we're here and who we actually are. We've linked to that. Which also will be in the show notes. You can check it out on YouTube, and there's a Telegram chat room and a projectionofyou.com. Yeah, I mean, this is some very. I'm thinking a lot about how I'm living in hell right now, and it might actually be hell, and I've never really thought about it that way tonight until tonight, my friend.
Brother, hell is what we make it to be, and if we fall into order with the program, then it will be hell, right? But if we stay sovereign and true to ourselves, then it won't be hell because sovereignty, humanity can't be taken, you know, and this just how it is. We're human beings and we have a spirit, we have an essence. Consciousness is something that we connect to, and through that we experience and we become aware of what's happening here. The spirit and the essence doesn't understand. It's just there, right? It's just there. Consciousness is what's decoding and understanding of what's happening here, and we need to come to terms with that and become holy with it and understand that there you were before this, you will be after this, you will die, and you will die alone, because you came into this world alone and you shall leave it alone. And it's all natural part of the process for you to understand. My philosophy always being in life, Greg, is that as a sovereign conscious entity within the infinite stream of consciousness, I've chosen to be here in this time and space. I've chosen the people that I'm going to be born to, and I've chosen what I'm going to look like. I've chosen my molds, I've chosen my scars, I've chosen everything about myself. I've even chosen the points in life that I want to experience as highlights. A, B, C, D, E. All those highlights of points. I've chosen all of that for myself. Now, I've used my parents as a vehicle to get into this realm, into this plane, because I need their genetic information, right? Because genetic information is very important. It's a weapon, essentially, that you can use in order to have a good experience on this planet. Now, if we choose all aspects of our life to come into this world, wouldn't it make sense that we've chosen an exit as well, regardless of how that exit is, because we want to experience that particular exit, what it's like to die that way. It
Hmm.
just can't happen free willy, right? It just can't happen free willy because there's no free willy. There's no free will. There's no such thing. If you have highlights and points in your life, major points in your life that have happened to you and have formed you and defined you into a person that you are today, characterized you into the person that you are today. Whether those were good experiences or bad experiences, they still happened, and those were going to happen. So there's no free will if that was going to happen. That was already preordained and preset, then you don't have any free will because you're headed right towards it. You can say, oh, I choose left or choose right. Sure, you can choose either or, but the road leads to Rome. Right? All roads
Oh,
lead to Rome. So that point A is going to happen regardless,
I'm
whether you
thinking
want it
about
or
Rome.
not.
I'll tell you that.
Yeah,
But
whether you
wait,
want it or not.
yes, yes, yes. Oh man, whew, this has been a doozy. I mean, there's a lot to sit on here. One of the things that came up for me just then was, they talk about how moment to moment in your life you can, if you start bringing consciousness to your choices, um, sometimes you can have more range of choice for how you react to things. I mean, that's often what, at least, I know you probably think this is BS, but supposedly that's what therapy was supposed to help with, right? It's supposed to give a person more choice. But I like the idea of every moment even when you're. I mean, I wonder how many people, Omar, when they're doing something they don't genuinely enjoy doing, could
Like
say to
work.
themselves, I'm choosing to do this, and then they ignore that voice that feels bad. They ignore that thing inside of them that's not full of integrity, and they're going, I mean, how many times can you check in with yourself a day? I'll challenge myself and the listener out there. And when you say, I'm choosing to do this, are you aligned with that choice? Or is it just something you're actively ignoring and you're going on with it? I mean, I feel like it's a call to live with a lot more intention than I think a lot of people do when you actively are choosing every moment and deciding to pay attention to that.
I think if your choices are being made subconsciously and you're acting upon those choices, then those choices are probably the real choices, the real things that you need to be doing, rather than the conscious choice, because the conscious choice is biased, it's egotistical, and it's
Hmm.
false and it's fake because it's been fed into your mind by the programmer. Now you're seeding your thought off of that, but subconscious is not. Subconscious is going off of what you need, why you're here, and what your real operation is. That's what it's working on. So the conscious mind is sidetracked and it can't be trusted.
Yeah. So
And
at the end of
therapy too. You know,
well,
I
I don't
tell,
trust the. I think there's an
I
industrial
tell you,
complex
Greg.
there.
Yeah, I tell you, Greg. I got a big problem with therapy, right?
Let's hear it. Let's hear all the takes.
I've been to a lot of therapists. Like I've been to a shit ton of therapists, and I've been in and out of the system, right? I was in the system when I turned about 12 years old, and I was in the system until I was 25. And I did a fair bit of time in prison, and I did a fair bit of time, locked up as a child. And I was given a lot of therapy, attempted to give me a lot of drugs, and everyone who I saw get therapy got fucked up even more. I
Hmm.
chose not to take therapy. I would fight it. I was like, lock me up. I've been locked up for 23 and a half hour days for 2.5 straight years because I refused to take drugs that they wanted me to have because they wanted to control me while I was in prison. I refused. I was like, no. So my consequence was I was going to sit there. Now I was watching everybody else who's taken these drugs and taken therapy. They're just fucked right up. They're foobarred. They're just foobarred. They're fucked up beyond all repair.
Hmm.
And I consider myself to be a pretty sane person because you see what therapy does. Again, therapy injects ideas. Therapy injects thoughts. Therapy injects false reality and not the genuine thought, not your own grassroots thoughts that's coming from your own soul, from your own essence, from your own heart, is coming from someone else. They're suggesting it to you. They're telling you that you're crazy. Now, if you tell somebody that they're crazy long enough, then they're going to begin to believe it and they're going to begin to act it. Right? That's what therapy is all about. They want to keep people crazy. And that's why I don't agree with therapy. You want therapy? Go talk to your mom. You want therapy? Go talk to your dad. You want therapy? Go talk to your sister. Go talk to your brother. Go talk to your cousin. Go talk to your auntie. Go talk to your grandparents. Go talk to your uncle.
Yeah.
That's where you're going to get therapy. That's where you're going to get heart. That's where you're going to get advice. That's where you're going to get, love, because that's what therapy really needs to be. It needs to be love, not somebody dissecting your mind and telling you things that you need to be doing, where, your dad or your relative can do the very same for you, your best friend, whatever. Whatever, man. That's the therapy that people need. So when it comes
Yes.
to commercial therapy, I'm just not down with it because I've seen way too many people get destroyed by it. And I just don't stand for it. I feel that it's artificial and it's part of the agenda, part of the transhuman agenda, and it's not good.
Yeah. I mean, when I picture Satan, I've always thought of Dr. Phil. So.
Dr. Phil looks like Satan's cue ball, anyways. Looks like Satan's cue ball.
He's part of that. Part of that. Yes. Well, look, everybody, we got this event coming up, which is one of many events Omar
Oh,
does. But I just want to put this out there, even if you're listening after the fact, because we know it's Thanksgiving when this is getting recorded. But the Marys of the Bible will be a panel discussion November 26, 2023 at 7 p.m. Pacific. I mean, look at we got some good people on here. Phil Gruber, Kiera Winrider, Stephen and Evan Strong. I mean, you guys are always delving deep into the origins of our world, but this is just one. Look, I mean, first of all, if you aren't able to make it live, this is the type of stuff that Omar puts up for free on his channel, Watchers Talk, which we'll link to. I mean, what are you going to be talking about in that?
this right here, Greg, is a panel discussion. It's one of my late ones. Doing this at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on November 26th because everyone is in Asia. Stephen and Evan, they're in Australia. Kiera is in India, and Phil is in Malaysia. So I'm the only one that's on the West Coast. So I thought, hey, instead of me going,
You're the early one.
that's right. So I have to sacrifice. So I'm going to have to do the late one. So it's set up for 7 p.m. We're probably going to go for about 3-4 hours. It's a panel. This time, individually, they're not making any presentations. It's just oral lectures and just a
Yes.
panel where everyone's going to have their chance. 3 rounds, usually what I do, and each person, takes their time in expressing themselves on, what they feel and what they know about the particular subject. And this one, we're going to be talking about the Marys from the New Testament and the Old Testament and trying to decode on who Mary is. I read a wonderful book recently by our buddy Kiera Winrider called Issa, son of Issa, and in it he talks about Jesus's journey to India, and it was in India that he had met a lady by the name of Miriam, and the West knows her as Mary, and Miriam was his tutor, and she was teaching him about how to attain Kundalini energy. And he spent, I think it was like 9 or 10 months in this one particular temple, as Mary being his guru essentially. And then he left, and then it was a few years later that they met up again. And by that time, Mary had been elevated to like a master class. And around that time, she had said, or Jesus said that he was going back to Bethlehem, and Mary said that she will see him later. So now that tells us is that Mary was from India. She wasn't Jewish, and she wasn't Middle Eastern. That in
Wow.
fact she came from India and met Jesus and hooked up with Jesus in Jerusalem. and then all the biblical stuff, went down after that. But when you look at a lot of characters from the Bible, it has a lot of Vedic, Abraham and Sarah, and Moses, for instance, is buried in India. Jesus's twin brother, Thomas, he's also buried in India. There's just there's just such a huge connection with India when it comes to Jesus that it's incredible. That's going to be Kira's take, and then Phil's going to be discussing about the magic of Mary, and Stephen and Evan are going to be giving us like the Gnostic
Yeah.
background of the Marys, and I'm just going to be a moderator because I am an amateur. I'm there to learn. So as questions pop up, I'll ask the questions. But really, I wanna let those four minds just explore one another, because Phil Gruber had mentioned that he would love to do a panel with Stephen and Evan, and I was like, hey, wow, why don't we bring Kiara in, talk about Mary, because Kieran
Yeah.
knows a lot about that. And he's like, yeah, let's do it. And so it's been a few weeks in the making, but it's happening on the 26th, free of charge, and anyone is welcome. And come in, put your input in. Let us know what you think. Let us know what Mary means to you, Mother Mary, and also Miriam. I
Yes.
just can't call her Magdalene anymore because, Magdalena is a town, right? So, essentially it's Mary of Magdalena, like Leonardo of Da Vinci, right? So I can't say Mary Magdalene anymore because, everything is pointing towards India of her being Miriam, right? So, yeah, come and join us and tell us what you think.
Yes. Yes. Very cool. Watchers talk. Om R Paw. Hey, for those skeptics out there, for those people that are going, is Omar a product of Saturn? Is his channel being broadcast on that planet right now? What do you have to say? Why are you not the spawn of Satan?
Is because I know who and what I am, and I know that I am a point of attention that is having this Earth experience, and I could care less about the good and the evil. I could care less in people's conflicts. It is too small for me. I'm a divine being. I'm much bigger than this particular matrix. I am an infinite being. I'm everything that there ever was, ever will be, ever has been. And these ridiculous divisions just can't penetrate my consciousness because I have absolute faith in it. And yeah, so I can't be bought, I can't be sold, I can't, and there's nothing anybody can hold over me. There's nothing anyone can bribe me with. There's nothing anyone can blackmail me with. I've put all my dirty laundry out on my channel. Everyone knows who and what I've done. My crimes weren't horrendous, but yeah, I hurt people. That's what I had to do when you live on the streets, when you live in prison. You have to hurt people. And that's what I did. Did I enjoy myself doing it? Sometimes I did, sometimes I didn't, but it had to be done. And I did it and I paid the price for it. And so yeah, all my shit is out there. So that's how it is, Greg, is
Yes.
I have nothing that they have nothing that I want is essentially is what it comes down to. They have absolutely nothing I want. Nothing that they have interests me because I'm not here for that, right? I'm here for Omar, right? I'm here for Omar to have these experiences that I've had up until this point. And whatever this coming in the future, I welcome it. And that's what I'm here for. And if I see an injustice happening along the way, then I'll be outspoken about it. But
You
I'm not
always
gonna take,
are.
but I'm not
Facebook
gonna
knows
take,
you are.
yeah, but I'm not gonna take sides. I'm not gonna take sides. Like for instance, this thing that's going on with Palestine and Israel. I've been accused a couple of times now of being anti-Semite and want to see Israel removed off the face of the map. And my answer always is like, no, I don't. I want to see a two-state solution. The Jews that are in Israel, they're Canaan's people, just like Palestinians are. and they both deserve to have a homeland. They both deserve to live in peace with one another, and that's it. I'm not hating on this, and I'm not hating on that. Yeah, they did this, they did this. Now they're fighting. What can I do about it? I can just be an observer, and I can say, hey, look, this guy kicked him in the balls. Kicking guys in the balls, it's not allowed, right? So you can't do that, right? And really, that's all I can do, right? So so
If
I
the Israel-Palestinian conflict was just a bunch of dudes kicking each other in the nuts, I think the world might be a more happy place, honestly.
It might be, but there's a much deeper thing that's happening there, Greg. It's not even the Nakba of 1947, but if we just look at something recent, that Israel wants to build a canal, the Gujnuri or Ben Gujuri canal, and the exit is right where the Gaza Strip is, and then there's been plans in the works to turn Gaza into one of the Nova cities. So there's a lot of things that are working in the background, and I'm just not a proponent of seeing people being kicked out of their homes and losing their land just because a corporation, some fascist corporate entity wants to come in and do business, right? That's not the way to do it. It's just
Yeah.
not the way to do it. You have to do it the right way. So, I got problems with both sides. I don't like the Hamas either. I think they're a bunch of cowards. They're terrorists. And I don't like the IOF either because I think they're the same thing. They're a bunch of cowards and they're terrorists. They can't confront each other face to face. One hides in the tunnels and the other one hides in airplanes and tanks. And people in the middle are paying the price. Children are paying the price. Women are paying the price. Elderly are paying the price. So, what's to glorify there? Absolutely nothing. So all I can do is stand up for the people that are being killed and injured and maimed and hurt and say, hey, this has to stop. This has to stop. But no one listens because there's a bigger agenda at play here, and we are minor voices in the overall scheme of things. We're but an actor on stage, Greg, your occupation. We're but an actor on stage playing out our role. And then once our role is done, then the point of attention will be lifted from us and we will return to being energy, we'll return to consciousness, and we'll just bypass the whole nonsense of heaven and hell and just go back to being God and take a vacation, man.
Wow. Go back to being God.
Yeah, man.
Om R Paw. Thank you so much for coming on. This has been another riveting, different, and energetically fueled conversation. I love that you opened loops, you bent minds. This has been great. Everybody check out Watchers Talk. Omar Paw. Thank you again. This is awesome.
Thanks for having me, Greg.